Hey, what is up? Welcome to this episode of the Entrepreneur to Entrepreneur podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Lofermento, and I know that I'm excited for every episode, but particularly for this one because off air, I get to have so many awesome and fun conversations with guests, and this one already has me so fired up, not only about what this guy does with his business, not only about his experiences, which I'm excited to humble brag for him, but this is someone whose energy is all about bringing great products and lifestyle experiences into the world. Let me introduce you to today's guest. His name is Paul Crandell. Paul is an adventure sports junkie and volleyball player from the Orange Coast and UCSB. He started selling artwork out of the back of his car after college. Why? So that he could ski, mountain bike, and surf, which led him to a small company that at the time was doing about $5 million in revenue. And I think that we all have a tendency to forget that every multi-billion-dollar organization was once a small 100K, 1 million, $5 million organization. And that company that he ended up at was called Red Bull. And Paul ended up selling Red Bull, their first title sponsorship in the US, and ended up there for 9 years, leading US sports marketing from 1999 to 2009, which it's a crucial time period because, mind you, Red Bull may have been about a $5 million company at that time, but under Paul, they helped, and Paul also was part of helping to grow revenue from sales and brand building to a $2 billion with a B dollar company 9 years later. After Red Bull, he went on to become the CMO of a not so small company that we've all heard of, GoPro, from 2011 to 2016, taking them from 60 million to more than $1 billion in revenue and an IPO in 2014. Since GoPro, Paul's had a number of different CMO positions in several business sectors, from healthcare to Chinese robotics to EV charging. He also has his consulting company, 1 Degree, where he's danced across dozens of different brands and industries. And having researched Paul extensively, he's an early investor in so many cool companies. I'm convinced that this guy is not only brilliant, but just freaking loves the businesses that he gets to work with. After a broad range of executive and managerial experience over 35 years, primarily in really fun industries, Paul decided he wanted to start his own lifestyle brand, and that's where Lumi smart projectors all started just 1.5 years ago. This is such a cool product. There's so much goodness. I'm not going to say anything else. Let's dive straight into my interview with Paul Crandell. Paul, I am so excited that you're here with us today. First things first, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. Great to be on here. Thanks for hosting me.
Heck yeah, I'll tell you what, on these episodes, time always flies by, so I try to make the intro so quick, but with you, it's so hard because you've packed so much into your life and career so far, so take us beyond the bio. Who's Paul? How did you start doing all these cool things?
Oh, man, just following my bliss. My father was incredible. My mother was incredible. They always said, follow your passions, follow your bliss, follow your nose. And, I didn't put on the suit after college and go interview. I wanted to ski and mountain bike, and that led me to fall into what I love doing, which was, working as a sports marketing guy for Red Bull. And it's kind of a long story, but it's a fun one. And I know we don't have too much time here, but if I give anybody advice out there, follow your passions, follow your bliss. It will happen for you. Just you stay persistent. Yes.
Yes, I love that brief overview, Paul, because we're obviously going to go much deeper, but I'm going to call something out really early on here is I don't think it's all about just following your passions. And here's why. It's because our passions are one thing. We always hear about in business, don't sell people the drill, sell them the hole. And so passions lead us to these really smart places. But when I look at your career thread, it just seems to me like, yes, your passion guided you into things, but it guided you into things where you marketed it. You treated it as something far bigger than just the acts in and of themselves. Red Bull isn't marketed as a beverage company. GoPro isn't marketed as a camera company. There's something more there. Take us deeper.
Yeah, it's all about culture at the end of the day and belief. It all starts with the belief in yourself. I told myself I wanted to be in sports somehow, some way, in sports marketing management. I wanted to get a real job after college, but I didn't want to put on the suit and tie. So, you sort of trust your instinct, trust yourself, and go after what it is you really want. And that passion drives you to do things, and those things that you do, you have to learn from. Your learnings guide you in life. It's like whether you're skiing down a big steep run or drop it into a wave, you got to believe in yourself, right? You've got to sort of stick the landing. Otherwise, the consequences could be pretty bad. If you apply that to business, if you drop in and you do an activation or a campaign, you got to go for it. You got to step off that ledge and do it. So that takes belief in yourself, and then you have to have the team around you. And that's where my sports career really helped me, because I was played with great people and in some cases some very winning teams. And I noticed that whether it was sport or in business, the winning mentality, that we can accomplish anything mentality, that energy exudes outward, right? You go pour your passion into something. I hate the word, in business, don't take it personally. I always took it personally. And I think because this is what I'm doing. I take it seriously. And I think the teams I always surrounded myself and the people that I was fortunate to work with over the years had the same attitude, which is why we were able to build successful brands and in sport have some winning championship teams over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Paul, as a fellow uber competitive person, I always feel like that's part of my competitive advantage in business, is everyone looks at me as always happy and always excited, which I am. However, I also have that dog inside of me, is I know I will outwork people, I will out hustle people, and I view that as a big trait. And I love being surrounded by fellow former athletes because it's such a core part of our DNA. It's fascinating hearing you talk about this, because a lot of people will tune in today's episode and, look at former CMO of GoPro. Like, there's got to be some secrets into marketing, but you're starting with culture. You're starting with people. Let's zoom way out. I'd love to get inside your marketer's mind, because it just sounds to me like you even view that fundamentally differently than the mere strategies and tactics that we like to talk about in the business world.
Absolutely. I think one of the things I've always lived by is, building strong relationships builds trust. That could be your team, that could be business partners, that could be, from retail to your consumers. You have to be real. You have to tell the truth. If you break that trust, you can spend years of building up trust. You make one lie, you sort of fudge something, and it all goes away. So build relationships, build trust, be real. If you can just live by those principles, things should start to pan out. Now, when we think about marketing and sort of, if you take that ethos and apply it to marketing, there's a lot of companies out there that are buying love, right? We pay an influencer, we put up an ad, we buy TV, but we all know that word of mouth is the most powerful form of marketing. No question, no doubt. And the only way to get that love for your brand is to be real. There were times when we made huge mistakes at Red Bull and GoPro, and we were very honest with our influencers and our which were our athletes, and we called them friends of the family. We didn't really call them influencers at the time. They're friends. They're real. They're real relationships. We got invited to the birthday parties. We were part of their culture. We were deep ingrained in it, and you can't buy that. You have to really take the time to step back from the immediate ROI and think about the relationship. And, this person cares about my brand enough to represent it. I'm going to take the time to be with that person and really understand how they tick and how they operate, so I can support them, and not just with a check, right? If a surfer needs wax for his board and he's late to the event, let's get him some wax. If the guy's out of money because he wants to throw an after party, let's find the money and do it, right? It's doing the right things for the right people that are truly passionate about your brand, and you wrap your arms around those people, give them a big hug, and they'll be with you forever. I've always kind of lived by that.
Paul, I love hearing that, because again, it's obviously a different style of marketing, which leads to a different style of results, which we're all interested in our own businesses. I'm going to extrapolate this to your current brand, Lumi, because as soon as our team landed on your website, we were just like, this dude is not building a projector company. Like, there are pictures on your website of families in the outdoors projecting their favorite movie onto the side of an RV. There's people living life and having their entertainment be a part of that lived experience experience together. I want you to talk about this approach, because hearing you throw terms around that I feel like we water down a lot, brand, product, it sounds to me like you are very intentional about those words, how you use them, and most importantly, how you build them. So take us behind the scenes to Lumi and that attitude about building something far bigger than the product and encompassing all of that into a brand.
Yeah, I mean, this little puppy here is the life of the party. I was always the guy. For some reason, my parents let me throw parties in high school. Thanks, Mom and Dad. I love to entertain, and GoPro gave me that. Red Bull gave me that, and these other companies I danced with and learned a lot from didn't necessarily have that. It's okay; they're great brands, great people, but they thought a little differently. So when I talked about following your bliss, one of the things I like to do is entertain. I'm a social guy. I love people. I love being around people. It energizes me. And if I started my whole career in events because I volunteered for an event and I was out hanging banners early morning, one morning, I saw these people coming into the events with smiles on their faces and their families. And I'm like, I want to do this. I want to put smiles on people's faces and entertain. And so that ended up eventually, right, creating the life of the party with a projector, because there's no, watching content in large format with people creates this fun environment. You're talking about the show or the content you're watching, and you're sharing stories and you're laughing together and you're smiling together, especially in the great outdoors now that you can take this anywhere with you. So it's that's where it starts. I think that's at the root. We want to entertain people and have fun and put smiles on people's faces and enjoy times together. And that's what Lumi's doing. Yes, we're a smart projector company, but we're also providing big screen magic anywhere you go. So that's sort of, if I can just focus on that and my team can focus on that, we'll develop great products. We will work hard to do that. But at the end of the day, that's what we do. We entertain. We're a solution for even artists who are doing murals, which is kind of crazy, but like muralists love this thing because they can put it on the wall and outline their mural and go back and paint it the next day. So there's other tertiary things that happen that are surprising in business. But yeah, ultimately we're the life of the party, hopefully, in most cases we've heard of, and we like to entertain. So being a little redundant, but I'm a little passionate about it.
Hearing you talk about these things, you take me back to business school. I was an economics and finance major, and now I feel like I've been lied to about so many things. In economics classes, we always talk about elastic versus inelastic goods and commodities and pricing and understanding gaps in marketplaces. And obviously the projector marketplace over the past few years has been flooded. I told you off the air, I confessed to you off the air that I was guilty. I bought a $15 projector from Amazon, and it's not great. And that's why when I found Lumi, I was just like, dang, it does everything so much better than the crappy projector that I built. When you look at that landscape, you talk about being the life of the party, but you're also outperforming the competitors. You also understand the industry at a really deep level. Talk to us about that product development, your product mind and your strategy mind that's gone into bringing this to the marketplace.
Yeah, great question. What we noticed early on when I first saw these and started learning about smart projectors is that, most of them were drop shipped from China, and China makes incredible hardware, and it's beautifully designed. Some of it, smart projector, these are the kind of the cowboy days of smart projectors. Not a lot of people know about them. So there was low awareness. Just talking to my friends, we were all used to a big, clunky, heavy projector that's not smart. And so this was news to people. So I started learning that this is news, and we had an opportunity. Then I started realizing with my business partner, Cody Ambergy, who's awesome. He's like, man, most of these projectors are getting drop shipped from China, and the China culture is trying to market into the US. So we saw a lot of like, I wouldn't call them false narratives, but they weren't exactly right. They weren't nailing like, what is an ANSI lumen and what does brightness really mean and what does smart really mean? And they were dropping all these things, and I'm like, wait a second, we've got to clarify this for the US consumer and really lead the conversation and talk about what these things are and what it means to buy an Android or a Google TV device or there's a lot of different variables in this, and we saw that opportunity to lead the conversation, really tell the truth and speak in an American voice and market the way Americans like to be marketed to. And that gets back to being real. And so that's where we saw it. There were a lot of us being drop shipped. We didn't see all the truth coming out. And so we're like, well, let's wrap our arms around this and lead this conversation.
Yeah, I love that. Take us to your approach of going to market, because for so many people, and especially just knowing our listener base as well as I do, it's that 0 to 1. It's getting that product market fit that is such a difficult time period. And people will look at the Red Bulls, the GoPros of the world and say, those are household names. Of course, it's easy for them to succeed. I mean, Red Bull can sponsor any cool event. I live in Tampa, Florida. They just did that cool event into the Hillsborough River where people build human planes and they try to run off and see who can fly the farthest.
Flugtag, yes.
Yeah, Flugtag. Red Bull can do all of these cool things, but for the small guys, you and I will look ridiculous, Paul, if we're doing that with a brand new brand that nobody has heard of. Or will we? Talk to us about that go-to-market strategy from 0 to 1.
When you start a brand, you kind of got to go in and own a niche, and you got to go step by step. And I think of it as, without a corny marketing term, like a 360-degree activation, which is a corny marketing term, but it's true. Like, you can't speak to everybody right out the gate. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough people. So like, I bought an adventure van. Okay. I'm one of those nerds that got the adventure van and went skiing a year and a half ago and went fly fishing and try to reinvent myself a little bit to really follow my passions. And I was always a traveler and an adventurer and love sports. And so why I wanted to start this projector company is because it worked great in my adventure van. And my business partner owns an RV, and we leaned right into that whole market. It's perfect for it. It fits our DNA. It fits our lifestyle. We get to have fun while we're marketing and selling this product because we're in the mix with these folks. And these are, they run the gamut from young to old. Some of them have highly technical adventure vans. Some of the retirees have these big RVs, and this can fit right into their lifestyle, and we can relate with them. So we show up at the events, we set up our booth, and we go to the parties. We stream content at night and show movies or live sports events, and they love it because that's what they need. It's fitting a need as opposed to just having a stationary TV in their RV. And quite honestly, you can't fit a television really in these adventure vans because they're smaller. So this was the perfect product. So just like a Lululemon who started in yoga, or a Nike who started in running, or Red Bull who started with snowboarding and skiing, you have to start somewhere. Build those relationships, go deep, get the people. If you do cool things in those niches like we're doing, the friends of the family, so to speak, or what I call our luminaries, start to come to us. They want to be part of that tribe, as opposed to us trying to forcefully go out and find those people when we're not even part of the culture. So as we grow, we will expand our market, just like we did at Red Bull and GoPro, outside of these, adventure van life for Lumi. At GoPro, we started in surfing because that's what everybody did there, right? We surfed, but we had to expand out of that. Otherwise, you become pigeonholed and known as the surf brand or an action cam. We want to be known as, an entertainment and enabling device for everybody who enjoys large format content on the go. So step by step, scene by scene, or niche by niche, a niche being the RV and overland adventure van market for us right now.
Yeah, Paul, hearing the way you talk about these things, and I really appreciate the step-by-step approach, you take me back to so many different concepts that I've heard from various entrepreneurs, super successful ones as well as unsuccessful ones, and that is about the right place at the right time. I once met this guy out in Salt Lake City who said to me, I'm the world's biggest multi-billionaire that you've never heard of because I was too early. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I was the one that was trying to sell AstroTurf fields to professional sports stadiums, before they were ready to say yes to it. And he's like, so I actually never did become a billionaire, but I would have been if I was in the right time in the mid 90s. And I was like, it's such an interesting concept because he knew what the right solution was. And I feel like we're at this really interesting point in time where actually behind me in my studio, I've got an Apple Vision Pro, which to me is one of the coolest pieces of tech right now. But the problem, Paul, is that I'm all alone in there. And I feel bad when my friends come over. I want to share it with them, but I can't. And it's the most engaging multimedia content that I've seen, but it's a solo experience. With AI, with technology advancing, I feel like our world is changing societally and socially as well. How do you feel those shifts are coming, and what are you thinking about on that more macro level with regards to right place, right time, as we're all trying to figure out what the next 10 years and beyond holds for us as consumers?
Yeah, look, I think the right marketing and sales cocktail, if you will, is gonna, it's first of all, it has to be personal. There's so much AI out there, and it's important. We got to have, we're married to it. It helps copywriting, it helps creative. So that's part of the mix. But mixing in real life, real situations is absolutely imperative to layer into your marketing mix. True storytelling, and not just made up artificial storytelling, bought and paid for storytelling. And we can't forget the personal relationships. So we pride ourselves in customer support, for instance. You have to be in touch with your consumer. You start a brand and you hope it works. You put it out there. You put this idea out there, this brand called Lumi or this brand called GoPro, and you have to go for it. You have to drop in, just like you're dropping into a big line on skis. And once it's out there, your product, you have to turn around and listen to the consumer. And then you have to start to solve their problems. And it doesn't happen overnight. They might want new innovation. They might want a chat bot. They might want AI built in. And so you have to find that balance between innovating and forcing something out there, because you have to do that when you're launching a product. You have to try it. But then you also have to listen really, really well and start to solve their pain points and communicate that you're working on those things. If you do that and you're real, they will love you for life. They'll be part of your brand forever. And it's just a really important piece to that sales and marketing cocktail, beyond the spots and dots and running TV commercials and making sure your placement's perfect in retail. You've got to go in with the right mentality to all of this, and kind of make sure you've got all your toolkits and everything's ready to go, and a very solid idea for what you're going to do. And that stems from who you are and how you act as a company. I think those brand values, which we baked from day one before we even launched the product, is imperative. And a lot of brands don't do that. A lot of brands launch and they don't know who they are yet. They klutz around, they're awkward. We knew that we were going to be truthful, we were going to be real, we were going to speak to the customer and lead this conversation. We were going to pick up the phone if they had questions. We weren't just going to rely on a chatbot, because people want answers and they want to talk to people. So anyways, I could go on and on about this subject, but that's how I feel.
Yeah, I love that. I will reveal this. When I hear you talk about these things, Paul, what I really hear is kind of the surfer's mindset of you'll just ride the waves. And it sounds to me, in hearing the way you talk about them, is that you're actually not married to any one solution. You're married to who you are and what your core values are, but you're not married to where that product is going to shake out and what marketing is going to resonate in the marketplace. And so it just sounds to me like you're willing to try things. And of course, as a surfer, you have to be willing.
I'm not that great of a surfer, quite honestly. I'm a better skier and fly fisherman, and so my surfer friends were probably going, yeah, dude, you ride a longboard, you catch some nice little 3 or 4 footers, but that's kind of my style. But yes, I do love surfing. We are riding the wave, and you've got to try things. Look, we only grow when we learn. We only grow when we have these learnings, both good and bad. The failures always make us better, because you have to get back up. As an entrepreneur, if you don't go out there and take a risk, you're never going to learn. So you've got to have the confidence to go drop in on a campaign or an idea or a product, and you have to be willing to take the hits is life ain't easy, man. We get hit, we get beat down, we make bad decisions, but we have to rise back up and we have to get back on the board and we have to keep going. So if you're not learning from your mistakes and advancing yourself as a person, or more importantly, with this conversation as an entrepreneur for a product, then what are you doing, right? And so you've got to have the reps, you've got to fall down, you've got to get back up, and you got to keep going, you got to keep swinging.
Yeah, Paul. All right, good. Now I feel free to not use surfing analogies. I'm going to use something that I know a little bit more about, and that's math. So I want to talk about a concept in math, and that is inflection points. It's something that I've experienced. I've been an entrepreneur for 17 years now, and it's never been linear. And certainly looking at your career, and especially you being CMO at GoPro, is you did not experience linear growth. Your slope was constantly changing, like that hockey stick curve that so many people want to understand and want to replicate at whatever scale it is that they're interested in. What are those inflection points look like? Because I would imagine between Red Bull, GoPro, between what you're doing with Lumi, there's always those things that when you do try them, and sometimes they really succeed, you experience that hyper fast growth. Looking backwards and trying to make sense of those patterns, if you can, what are the inflection points that you've noticed throughout your career or in campaigns or product or culture, the way that you've done things that yield those hockey stick growth curves?
Some of it's timing. At GoPro, we sort of hit the height of social. Like, we hit social right at the right time. It was and we had already cemented relationships with a core community. We were great community builders. And so again, back to the RV and van life market, those are our friends. And they're going to be the building blocks and the brick and mortar in our success to grow, just as runners were to Nikes, just as, yogis were to Lululemon. So go do those things right. Go be part of that community in the right way. Nail it. The inflection points will come as the word of mouth travels and the people out there trust your brand. Because there's no more flattering thing in the world than to have somebody else talk about you. So the inflection point comes over time as you build trust. And the more people that trust you, the more people that talk about you. And we used to we like to say at GoPro, GoPro is a 10-year overnight success. It didn't happen in 2 or 3 years. So the inflection points started to come, and I'd say year 6, year 7, even before I was there, when we had that base of community that truly trusted the brand. And then when we had high awareness in a certain market, we were able to go above the line with media, and that awareness started to just go big. But you cannot go right out of the gates with big campaigns and billboards and TV and a bunch of above the line stuff until you nail your brand promise to your core community. So the inflection point comes with a certain level of steps to get there. But yeah, I'd say an inflection point for Red Bull was Flugtag. We were an action sports brand, really speaking to a lot of core communities, whether it was breakdancing or skydivers and base jumpers and surfers. And we kind of had that on lockdown. But we didn't really have something that spoke to everybody. And with our brand promise that Red Bull gives you wings, Flugtag was a campaign. Really, it was a step-by-step campaign and an event in the middle of it that spoke to everybody. You were able to be creative. You were able to go out and propose your flying aircraft to the powers that be at Red Bull, and that was a campaign in itself. So you get to look at all these great ideas, and people knew that they could submit their ideas. And then you got to select the ideas and make an announcement about those flying objects that people were going to do. And then the event came, and now that's a whole nother week-long celebration of flight. And then you had the winners and all the after stories about their excitement about the event. So those are inflection points. I think the inflection points are when you have an aha moment that says, okay, we've spoken to this audience. We're going to still be their best friends. Now we're going to start to expand our horizons and go outside of just that world. And, that has to happen pretty quickly. but it has to happen meaningfully, and you need to take the time and really dig into those ideas, and not just be, a one-man band. Wait, that's not the right analogy. A one-instrument band. I don't know how to say that, but expand your horizons. Go outside of just your core eventually, but make sure that you convey to that core that you really appreciate how they helped you grow. Like, you've always got to be there. You got to always be there for them. It's just like a friend. You never run away from your best friend from college or high school. They're always there. You're always talking to them still, right? It's the same way for brands.
I think you just nailed it in that last thought about friendship, because the beautiful thing about friendship are inflection points with friendships. They don't come by chasing inflection points. They come by chasing, to bring it back to really what sounds like it's at your core, is those relationships. And really what my analytical mind is hearing in the way that you answer these questions is, Paul, what I'm taking away from today is you focus so much more on leading indicators that you're not optimizing your decisions and your strategy for any sort of results. You're not looking for those growth curves. You're actually just doing the things that are the leading indicators that will naturally yield those things. So I really appreciate getting into that part of your mind. Go ahead. Is there something you want to add there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of relying too much on that over the years, and there is a bottom line. And as a CEO, of course, we have to make sales, right? We can't just go on this journey without selling products. So this gets back to that marketing and sales cocktail. Yes, relationships are incredibly important, and delivering experiences that money can't buy, incredibly important. That's that relationship, and the old term, money doesn't buy love, right? So you have to do those things, but you also have to drive revenue, and return on ad spend and the cost of acquisition of a consumer is extremely important to us. And so, we are very data driven, and we've got to have results. Because without results, there's no money to go do these fun things with all these cool people. So that balance is hard to navigate. But at the core, if you focus on doing the right things for the right people, strengthening those relationships, being real throughout that quantitative journey, and making sure you can appease your investors and make sure that there's revenue coming in so we can put food on the table and keep the lights on in the business and accelerate that. Extremely important. So don't misunderstand me. Those things are incredibly important, but as important, I think the business majors, the CFOs of the world focus too much on the direct ROI and the immediate return, as opposed to remembering what got you there, and those relationships, and doing those things that aren't quantifiable. That's truly building brand. Doing the right things for the right people at the right time isn't always quantifiable. And so you've got to find that balance. But I weight them completely equal. And I think it's important, especially for the CFOs out there that might listen to this, to consider that. Because events don't pay back immediately. But events lead to incredible relationships that could pay off next week, in a year. You just never know. You could meet a global distributor for your product at an event that is going to take 2 or 3 months to get a contract done, and all of a sudden, boom, you're out there. And I think we're, with the digital age right now, we're thinking too short term. We're thinking about immediate ROI, and I think it's failing a lot of companies.
Yes, so well said. I love that practical caveat that is on all of this. And you keep talking about that cocktail, and I appreciate you reveal the cocktail recipe right there, which it is 50-50. And it's so important to value both sides of that coin. Paul, I knew that between the two of us here today, we definitely go over time, but I do want to squeeze 2 more questions in, because the further I dug into you and your work and all the cool things that you're up to, I find that you're on the board for a bunch of companies. You are an early investor in some really cool brands, some of which we've all heard of and we see on the streets of cities all around us. You consult with other brands. You also are obviously running Lumi as the CEO and co-founder of it. You're doing so many things. What's the life of Paul the entrepreneur look like as you balance all of these things with family as well as adventure that I know you're inevitably still getting into?
The balance comes with when you find a gap. We have business every day. When you find that gap, or you can have the foresight to see ahead of the calendar and the work days, you got to get time with yourself. And I I get out there 2 or 3 times a week. I mountain bike, I fly fish, I try to get in the surf. But you've got to go take a breath. My morning routine is sit in the hot tub and think. I call it my think tank. It's the best place. I put my phone down. I think about the day. I think about the week. And that's where all my thoughts gather. And then to really escape and shut your mind off, I turn it on the rivers and on the trails, man. That's where it's at for me.
Yes, so important. With all of the things that you do, I'm so appreciative that you emphasize that for our listeners, that we have to get away from it all, because that's what brings us life. That's what brings us coming all the way full circle. You talk about the bliss, and that's part of what really makes you perform at the level that you do. So, Paul, with all the goodness that you've brought for us here today, I've got to ask you this question I ask at the end of every episode, and that is, somehow for you, what's that one piece of advice that you want to leave listeners with? Knowing that we're being listened to by both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs at all different stages of their own growth journeys, and as a fellow entrepreneur yourself, what's that one piece of advice that you want to leave them with today?
Do not be afraid to make mistakes and follow your bliss. Don't listen to other people and what they think you should be. Be who you want to be and go for it. Just freaking go for it and learn. And you're going to get beat down. And if you don't have the tenacity and the grit to get back up and keep going, then good luck. So that's the mentality, right? As an athlete or what have you, you've got to crash to get better. So there you go.
Yes, I love that. It's a hard thing to hear, but we all have to experience it in order to grow through it, and you have to crash. It's something that, living in LA for as long as I did, going to the Venice skate park, it's the thing I always observed there is I was like, man, none of these dudes get better unless they're willing to fall. You literally have to fall as a skateboarder in order to get better. And gosh, is that such a tough lesson for all of us to hear in life and business. But Paul, I am so excited about what you're up to with Lumi. I confessed to you off the air about the purchases that I've made, but Lumi is officially going to become my recommended projector, and it's going to be something that is really cool for future events that we're hosting down the line. Listeners, that's a little bit of a tease for me, that if you come to any of our events in the future, you will likely see a Lumi smart projector there. So, Paul, for listeners who want to see your marketing in action, your brand in action, the product that you've built, and the way that you guys are surfing those waves to find that product market fit, and obviously bring Lumi to as many people as possible, drop those links on us. Where should listeners go from here?
Absolutely. Go to grablumi.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, Grab Lumi. And we'd love to have a conversation with you and get you a projector, and so you can create the life of the party in your own environment.
Yes, I love that. Listeners, trust me. I know I say at the end of every episode, you want to see this website, but success leaves clues. I always say it. You obviously heard and learned from Paul here today, but if you want to see the fruits of his labor, see these things in action, go to grablumi.com. You already know we're making it as easy as possible. You can find that link down below in the show notes, no matter where it is that you're tuning into today's episode. If you're watching us on video, Paul's rocking his branded shirt. I expect nothing less from him, so go to grablumi.com. Check it out. You're going to find really cool things there. And like I said, it's not just the product, it's the brand. Success leaves clues. Go to grablumi.com. Otherwise, Paul, on behalf of myself and all the listeners worldwide, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it, man. There's a shaka for you. Appreciate you and everything you're doing to help grow entrepreneurship